Hello YouTube, this is You Can Do It Dave. In this next video, I will be working on making the wall portion of the 26-inch round window for the Hobbit Home. Okay, so we've got the window sash done, we've got the pivot points done, we've got the face plate done. Now we've got to make the part that's actually going to go through the wall to hold it in place. Okay, so using a standard 1x4 select pine or clear pine, I'm going to cut this into 16-inch lengths and stand them up on edge or on end so that it will make kind of a hexagon shape. Okay, since I am cutting them to length, you can cut it whatever size you need. So if you're making a straw bale house and your straw bales are 24 inches, you can cut your 1x4s 24, 25, 36, whatever length you need. It will still apply. Okay, so let's get started. Now the good thing about cutting 16-inch pieces out of an 8-foot board is there's not very much waste, which is always a good thing. As for a safety message for this video, breathing mask and hearing protection is rather useful. Okay, you're not breathing in all that sawdust, and you kind of want to be able to hear when you get older. Okay, so the next step, now that you've got your boards cut, all nice, same length. The next step is to put a 5-degree angle on each side and stand them up like that. Okay. Now I came up with a 5-degree angle by trial and error, and basically I set up the fence on the table saw and I cut 3 boards. Okay. Started at 15 degrees, then 10, then 5. And you squeeze them together and you'll see pretty quick whether they line up on that curve or not. Okay, so let's put the bevel on here and see how it goes. Okay, so I finished putting the bevel on all the pieces of wood. Okay, just a very slight angle. Okay, and what you're going to do now is take your boards and just stand them up, just dry fit them. Okay. Now I use the staple gun, and I put a staple in top and bottom on both sides. And what you'll end up with is something that looks like this. Okay, and that fits right on the line. I'm not sure if you can see it there, but the spacing is exactly the same for each board. Okay. And what this tells me is the next step, I'm ready to glue. Okay, the angles are all touching, they're all nice tight fit. Okay, I can glue this together, put a couple of ratchet straps on it, and just squeeze the whole thing together. Nice tight construction. Okay, so let's continue putting this together and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I'm just past the halfway point of putting the vertical boards on this window. Okay, and for the most part I'm still using the 5-degree bevels on each side of the wood. Now I have had to put in 1 or 2 10-degree angles just to keep it in line with the edge of the window. But for the most part, I don't see any problems with gluing this up the way it is. I shall continue on putting the boards on, and we'll see what it looks like after that. Okay, so that is the last vertical board. Now we'll use the trusty window or framing clamp, and we'll see if we can't clamp this thing together and see how it looks. Now we tighten it up. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking for right there. The last 4 pieces I did not put any staples in, since it's very hard to reach inside. Keeping in mind that these high spots here, the ends of the boards will be trimmed off once I know the final width of the wall. I'll trim this off and I'll put the faceplate on. So now the next step would be to pull it all apart and glue it. Okay, so now that we've got the complete circle done, okay, we can go ahead and we can number each board, put reference marks where each board connects, and put a little X at the top. So there's a way to verify that each board is going back in the same position that you want it to be. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a couple of lines, a number, and then an X at the top. Okay, and that's all you do all the way around, is just number, reference, top. That way you know which side is which way is up, and you won't have any mistakes. So I've got all the boards pulled apart. I pulled out all the 120 or so staples that was holding it together, and each board has an X on the top, a number, and guide marks. So it'd be very easy to put them together. You can't put them upside down, you can't put them backwards. You line up the guide marks, 1, 2, 3, 4, and glue them together. Okay, let's do some gluing. So now for this project I use paint brushes a lot for gluing, to spread the glue around, and I'm finding that if you put it in a plastic, just a screw container, put a little bit of water in the bottom, it actually keeps the brush fairly moist, so you can reuse it again and again and again. Here's the tip for the day. Now is the time to start thinking about the inner and outer face of the window. So when I was showing you the faceplate, you could see these screw holes. Well, that's not right, okay? You want to be able to have a nice clean face, no wood screws showing, no holes, okay? Now, with the pivot frame, nobody's going to see it, so I've used black marker, and right at the pivot points, I put 2 on one side and 1 at the other, okay? And every time I pull out a screw, I put a black marker on it. Now remember that nobody's going to see this pivot frame, okay? So that way, when I'm ready to put it back together, I can use the same locations and put the screws back in the same spots. So once you have all the screws that are holding it together taken out, should be able to just take these 2 off. There's your window sash with the pivot pins. Okay, pull out the pivot pins so you don't damage anything. And there's your window with pivot points, or their pivot frame with pivot points. The reason I'm doing this is I want to be able to use this circle, top and bottom, to line up these boards. Okay, so what will happen is these boards will be just on the outside of this ring, Okay, and you line up your marks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up my marks just like that. Okay, that is the way the pivot frame is going to be put together. So what I can do is I can lift this up and use both halves to make my window body. Okay, so here is the plan of attack. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with board number 1, and as I'm gluing them together I will staple them. Okay, I'll have one of these as my base, and I'm going to use 3 of the highest number boards. Okay, I'm going to use 3 of these, and I'm going to screw them into the frame where I want them. And that's number 3. Then I can take this top frame and I can screw it into place as well. So after making sure that the 2 marks for the right side are lined up and the 1 mark for the left side is lined up, you can go ahead and you can screw these into place, and that will give you an idea of whether you're following the curve properly. So once you have your gluing frame together, you can go ahead and start at number 1, X at the top, and you can start gluing each board onto the frame. Now do not glue them to the pivot frame. All you want to do is glue the boards together so that they're a solid unit. So once you get them together, give them a squeeze. And a staple. First set. So now I'm finding this might be a mistake here. You don't want drips of glue going on your boards, hardening and making problems. So I'm just going to set these aside. Now to make sure I don't get too far ahead of myself, because I've taken the top 3 boards, I'm going to stop at 23 and put 28 and 29 somewhere else. So that way when I get to 23, I'll have to pull these out. Well, I'll have to pull them out as I go around, but that will stop me and go, okay, what do I do next? So now, continue on. So I'm also finding that if you glue the one seam that you're doing now, but leave the outer one dry, then you can put it together and handle it and manipulate it, squeeze it, and put it where you need it without getting all covered in glue. Okay, so with the last board in place, now it's time to put the clamp around it and clamp it together and make it a really tight fit before all the glue dries. So you put the clamp on as tight as you can get it. You tighten it down. And now we'll just let it dry. After letting this sit for a couple of days, just to let the glue dry, okay, it's time to take the rings off and see what you have. Now there is spots of glue on your pivot frame. You can always sand them off and still use your pivot frame. So there is your window pass-through. Okay, you have a nice straight edge for your window frame to attach to. You have not so straight of an edge, but then since this is going to be trimmed off when you install the unit, that's not really a problem. In my next video, I will be making up a inner drip edge for the inside of the window and the face frame for the house side of the window frame. And then we'll do some assembly. So this is You Can Do It Dave, and we will see you next time.